Welcome everyone to our interview with our next expert. This is Jake Gallen. He's a detoxification specialist who has studied under Dr. Morse. So that is pretty legendary. And he's another Aussie. So that's how we kind of connected. Hello, Jake. So
Hey,
awesome.
Steph, how you going? Yes, we are fellow Australians.
Yeah. I was like, yay, kindred spirit when I
Yeah.
found you online. Yeah, so I found Jake when my hair was falling out and I was going down that rabbit hole a bit. And I came across the whole concept of acidity in the body and all of that. And then we connected and Jake solved all my issues. And I want to share him with you so he can share all of his wisdom and make all of this clear about how to heal our lymphatic system. So, Jake, can you start by quickly telling us your story and how you came to be a detoxification specialist? I understand you had lots of challenges health-wise, and that's often why we come to this. So,
Mm.
share.
Yeah. Well, yeah, essentially, I could say it started before I even knew anything about detoxification. So when I was a baby, and as a growing child, I had major problems. Like from the word go, 15 months of age, my appendix ruptured, which essentially means the lymph node in the area just burst and filled my GI tract with waste. And I should have died. Like the chances of surviving that is next to nothing. And somehow survived that. And then I continued to have major digestive problems as like an infant to early age, like 4 or 5. And they kept putting the medical system kept putting different labels on me and like you've got this condition, and that's how I'd be dead by the time I'm 10, or these kind of things. And my mum just pretty much said, yeah, whatever, you guys don't know what's going on. It's just a miracle he's alive. So let's just move on. And so as a child though, I had chronic teeth issues. Like I had the teeth just like brittly falling away and cavities everywhere. And then by the time I became a teenager, those conditions sort of like subsided, but you could almost say they just became like the sea calmed a little bit. And then when I was 18, I discovered veganism and went vegan like straight away, and just thought, well, I can eat all the pasta and potato and breads that I want. And that was a mistake because I developed like crazy skin conditions, even more so like psoriasis, eczema. Anytime I would sweat, I would itch, and that persisted until my early 20s, early to mid 20s. And just as a side note, when I was 18 is when I actually discovered Dr. Morse as well. I knew there was some truth to what he was saying, and I was like, this guy is different. He's saying something a bit different. But it took many years until I, studied into school and now a practitioner through the teachings of Morse. But really, what got me to make that switch was a few years ago, I just had more teeth eroding. I had to have a tooth removed. I had to have a tooth filled in, so much so that the dentist is like, what she said, yeah, we don't really see too many things like this, but it's very odd that they're eroding from the inside out, was the term. And I asked her what would cause a tooth to erode from the inside out, because we are told that and taught that
Mhm.
it's the external food that comes in, erodes the tooth from the outside in. And she said, oh, probably diet has something to do with that. And I said, okay, so if I were to change my diet, would that reverse that situation? And she said no. And that made no sense to me. I already knew what the reason was because at that time I was really ramping up getting into studying at Morse's school. And then after making that switch, all the pain left my mouth, the teeth stopped eroding. From what I could tell, from based on color, certain areas that was eroding before have full enamel back in them. So I would say that
That's
without a
awesome.
scan, I can't tell, but I would say that tooth is rebuilding,
Mm.
which does happen. People can regrow teeth, regrow through enamel, and so on. So it was always a battle of pain in my mouth, skin problems, digestive problems, and then living a life without an appendix. And because of that suffering, I then felt pulled. The only thing I felt pulled towards doing was helping people this way, and then that's what I'm doing now.
Mm. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that our biggest wounds become our purpose.
Mm.
And you've been very, very generous to me. It was like, oh, I don't know, you find those angelic people in your lives that become a savior. And so
Yeah.
that's what you've represented to me. And yeah, I'm really grateful. So just on that point with the teeth, I find that so fascinating because uh, this whole journey for me started with my daughter's teeth rotting. That's
Mm.
more than a decade ago. And that's when I really went down that rabbit hole and I discovered K2 and the Western Price and all this kind of stuff. He's the guy that went and studied traditional cultures and worked out what was changing their jawlines and crowding their teeth. And it was just shown that as soon as they introduced sugar and white flour and the Western foods, within one generation, their jawlines would change and their teeth would
That's
crowd.
crazy.
It affects your
That's
sinuses.
nuts.
Yeah, and then in
Yeah.
effect with childbirth, because your teeth and your pelvis are, in are connected. So if
Mm,
your jaw narrows, so does your pelvis, and so they'd never had birth issues and all this kind of stuff. And I found it so fascinating
mm.
that in one generation they could show younger siblings compared to their older siblings that weren't brought up with that diet. And it's just absolutely devastating. And I think that we've normalized all of this in our society and called it aging or just,
That is so true. Literally call
yeah.
it aging. It's
Mm.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so tell us how this is all connected to acid in the body and what acidosis is. And this was my huge revelation and got to the core of why my hair was falling out, why my eyes were swelling up all the time, and
Mm.
all of that, tea sensitivity, the whole lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. So essentially, there's one main system in the body that really no one knows about. Even in the raw community, people may have heard the term, but they don't really understand how the body's actually getting rid of waste or how the body's actually been able to go from looking pretty bad to now looking better on something like raw foods. And that system is the lymphatic system. And this is about like 80% of the fluid in the body. And this essentially is your uh, garbage waste system. You've got little lymph nodes everywhere, which are like garbage trucks removing waste. And then you've got the lymph system, which is there to carry that out. And the main area that people talk about is blood, blood all the time. It's this blood, this, blood, that. And yeah, that is super vital for feeding cells, but then equally vital is that cells can eliminate their waste because they eliminate waste into the lymphatic system, but if it isn't moving, it won't leave. And that waste is about 3 pH, potential of hydrogen, which essentially is pretty hot. It's like sort of Coca-Cola level of acidity. And that pH needs to leave the body and go through lymph nodes, which increases its alkalinity by the time it gets to the kidneys, which should be about 6. So if you're someone that has too acidic urine, even too alkaline urine, you're going to feel it. It's going to burn. And about 6, it will just be normal. So that process has to take place, and that's how we filter cellular waste. And when that doesn't take place, when that lymphatic system is like stagnant, because unlike blood, it doesn't have a pump. You could say the lymphatic system's pump is movement, but it also is astringents, which are found in fruits primarily. And this is an indication by nature, again, that we need to focus on those foods. And so when this lymphatic system isn't moving, that lymphatic waste backs up around the cells, whether that's in your head, in the scalp, in your teeth, like with me in the jaw, or head with you in the scalp area. Those acids are sitting there and they are going to literally just destroy the tissue around that area. So if that's a hair follicle, if that's your teeth, if that's anywhere of like in the top layer of the skin, anywhere in the body, if that stagnation sits there, that area will just go from a stage of acute to subacute to chronic to degenerative. And they're the stages of degradation of the human body, which, as you aptly put before, people just call aging. Hence why people can go from looking older when they were younger and looking younger now they're older just because of the change of their diet. Yeah, and that's like the most briefest overview way to put it. But the point is well that people need to realize is it's not about acids being an enemy. It's about that excessive high acid conditions aren't good. Fruits have acids in them. Like grapes have a high amount of acid in proportion to alkalis. The same way your body has hormones that are more acidic and hormones that are more alkaline, like estrogen is more acidic, progesterone is more alkaline. There has to be a homeostatic balance, which essentially is just like equal. None of this too extreme, because if you have too alkali, that's where you have fungal problems, and if you have too acidic, that's where you just have degeneration in other areas. But even in a high alkali situation, we still have high acidosis with it, and those two combined is just a mess. Like it's not fun. So it's
Mm.
not about one being an enemy, one or the other. It's about there's an imbalance, and the issue is there's too much acidity and it's not going anywhere.
It's amazing. It's such a great explanation. Thank you. It just makes it also clear because I just
Mm.
would kind of say it's just like your cells are swimming in its own sewage. It's
It
just
is, yeah.
because you know when you're a mum, you got to clean your baby's butt straight away,
Yeah,
otherwise it burns them. And it's just like
yeah,
that's kind of like how our cells are experiencing
that's
their environment.
exactly right. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. Because that's acid coming out in your stool. That's acid waste, whether it's physical acid waste or like with urine will burn if you're filtering a lot.
yeah,
And if you go test the pH of we can get into that, like what filtration is, like how to know if your body's detoxing. That's a big thing. You need to make sure that's coming out the body. You can test that, and it'll often it smells really bad. It doesn't look great, and it's because it shouldn't be there. Like
exactly.
there shouldn't be that much in the body. Like no other animal on planet Earth that's natural in their natural habitat, none of their lymphatic systems get the same bombardment that the human
Hmm,
lymphatic system
okay.
gets in the human body.
And I think that's why we've got to do things that people regard as unnatural to overcome what's happened to us.
Mm,
So we can talk about all those, other detoxification methods to open up
mm,
our pathways. So
yeah.
like say for instance, enemas, dry brushing, saunas, red light therapy. What else are we doing? We're doing rebounding.
Mm,
Um, castor oil packs, all of those
yeah.
things, yeah, in our
Onyx,
program
yeah.
to help support. But I did do the herbs that you recommended to start with, and you did an iridology consult for me, which
Mm,
was really, really eye-opening. But basically it comes down to like backed up lymph, doesn't it? It's just
mm,
you get to see where our genetic weaknesses are and where that's sitting in our bodies.
yeah.
So if people want to change this balance in their body of the acid alkaline, and they can see, well, what kind of things would they be experiencing if they have an acid system, if they've got too much acid happening in
Mm.
their
Yeah, that you could have anything from just waking up feeling like you haven't slept. That's a pretty common one. You know, people say like, I'm not a morning person.
life?
One of the biggest things you'll notice when you uh, get more of this waste out is you'll wake up feeling so much more revitalized. Like you're just there, like, all right, let's go. There's no sluggishness. So any sort
Can't
of
even sleep
sluggishness.
in today. I'm like, I went to bed only a few hours ago and I can't even sleep in.
Yeah, literally, it's like that. It's so
Yeah.
it's almost as Morse talks about. He often has to bring himself down a notch because the energy can get so high at times, and that's where finding balance later on after doing some
Mm,
deep cleaning is really vital. But anything, any sort of pain, aches, headaches, digestive issues, any of these problems is clear indication that there's stagnation happening in the system because people always talk about like taking vitamins or taking whatever it is to try and improve health, but they forget there's steps involved that need to happen in order for our body to function, and that is um, uh, uh, what are the systems? Yeah, it's digestion, absorption, utilization, and elimination. And the
mm,
first two are pretty much just not going to work. So the other ones can't happen because they all have to coincide with one another. So if you're saying that you eat something and you feel good, but then actually I don't feel good because now a few hours later I've got a stomach ache or my legs feeling a bit tight or I can't go and do exercise or whatever. These are indications that you have excessive acidosis in the body that is prohibiting your body from working properly. Like you shouldn't feel your body. Your body shouldn't be something you should notice. You should be
mm.
able to like flawlessly just move in it. It's like with a well-running car. It's like if there's no, you're not aware of any problem because it's working perfectly. So
Great.
anything that's even if someone was just to be like, just sensitive to themselves, it's just to take notice of things that are like discomforts and pains, like the very clear indications or even subtly clear indications that there's something not right. And that really just stems, as you said, to stagnant lymph in respective areas.
Yeah, and that's what then we diagnose as diseases. So
Mm.
like if you've got an autoimmune diagnosis or cancer or things like that.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what,
It's just naming a symptom because when you do detox, the symptoms of detoxification are the same symptoms that they label as diseases. And it's because your body is all their disease theories are labeling is just an attempt in your body trying to get better or a warning signal of, hey, something's wrong. I need you to like like, hey, don't do this anymore. And often people just aren't aware of it. Like they'll consume things they're not aware that the foods they're consuming, the chemistry they're putting on their skin is causing that, and it's making that worse. And they take things to suppress whatever ailment they have during the day, and then that's where pharmaceuticals come in, right? And then it's just endless, and they'll never get out of it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed watching that documentary on the guy that goes, he's another Australian. What's the show called? How he juices across America. He did oh,
The Australian guy.
yeah, he's an Australian who goes across America. It's quite a while ago, but basically he had this really bad disease of his skin where it would just flare up and be unbearable. And the juicing healed him and all that. And then he met an American guy with the same issue, and the same thing happened with him. It eliminated it. Yeah.
Mm.
So so if someone is wanting to juice, say for instance, or to really, or well, how would you recommend that people approach getting this acid out of their system and
Yeah.
restoring their
Well,
balance?
the first thing I would do is like a fail-safe thing is always make sure the first meal you have in the day is fruit. That's just like a rule that you should observe for the rest of your life if you want to live well. Even if you're someone that doesn't want to change much else, just doing that, you're going to see an immense improvement. But bringing in way more fruits into your diet, and depending on the severity of your situation, like I would take it very seriously, and I would make sure that the baseline of my diet is like simple cooked vegetables with a focus on raw foods. So
Mm.
like if you're someone that has gone from a standard Australian or American diet, just a Western diet, probably not the smartest idea just to go into a juice fast. So you want to probably use a transitionary period where you transition for maybe a month, incorporating more raw foods. But the main thing is stop fueling the fire, even if it means neutral foods. So like no high acidic foods, no high mucus forming foods like dairy, meat, beans, rice, eggs. These things are just like chaos in your body. So even just going bake, even if you were to just eat simple cooked vegetables, that's like a neutral thing. You've just stopped adding to the situation. So you could say even then as a transition, just by doing cooked vegetables, will just stop you feeding that flame. Because when someone is very acidic, just a little bit of gasoline on that acidic fire is just going to make it shoot up. And I see that time and time again with clients when they go, well, yeah, I'm all good. I had a little bit of this, and then bam, they have one little thing, and they just go, oh my God, well, you just can't afford to do that. So that's why
That
really
happened to me
take
the
it
other day.
seriously.
I
So
texted you, I was like, that happened to me the other day. I texted you and I was like, I ate cooked food and now I feel like I'm back at square one.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly. And when you get more sensitive and you've been down the road further, even cooked simple foods will be too much. Because like as
it was
Dr.
all it was all good. It was all vegan and like a curry. It's
Hmm.
beautiful. Loved it.
Yeah, yeah, it
Uh,
would have been good. But this is like what Morse talks about. He's like, you can't make something more alkaline by cooking it. Like so
mm,
already then, even if it's a vegetable, you are dehydrating it by cooking it, which is burning off electrolytes, which means it's going to be lower in electrolytes, which is lower in alkaline chemistry. So it's going to be, even if it's subtle, even if it's a subtle change, even if it's not regarded as acidic, when your body does get really clean and you add something like that, even that can be like just that you can't go there. I'll feel it like straight away. If I even have like sweet potatoes sometimes with a salad is so heavy that I want to like sleep. And then I go, I don't really want to eat that. But you know, it was cold, and then it's like the cold gets to you or whatever it is, you know.
I
So
know, I
there's
know.
those sort of aspects too, like this
Yeah.
the environment and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So we in our program we go through that whole transition phase, and then so that's the first thing is eliminating processed foods and getting towards the more raw veggies and everything, and then eventually steaming any cooked foods. And then once we go to raw, then it's like more high raw fruits. Then we're going to go into a juice fast. Can you tell us what you would recommend that way, or if you think that's a good idea for
Yeah.
everyone, or you shouldn't do one, or
Yeah.
what?
The only time I would say at the beginning, if someone shouldn't really entertain the idea of an extended juice fast, is if they've been on excessive pharmaceutical drugs. I think any sort of long fasting on when you've been on a lot of medications is not the best idea. The amount of toxins and chemicals in these substances that remain in your lymphatic system. Yeah, when that gets stirred up through fasting, which will happen pretty quickly, yeah, it could be not a good combination. So, and it could just mean that you just experience far more discomfort in the fast, though my experience with juice fasting hasn't been that, but I haven't had pharmaceutical drugs. So that's why it's being smart with realizing where you were at, and not being down on yourself if you realize, hey, my body might be more stagnant and backed up, so I need to take some more precautionary steps. But if you're someone that's been doing really well on the diet and been doing really well on like high raw, high fruit, even with like salads and simple cooked vegetables in there, and you're doing really well and you're feeling great, yeah, you could get stuck into an extended juice fast with really no problem. For example, when I did my juice fast, I didn't prepare in the way that I should have, and I still had a brilliant time. Like this is like what I mean. So it's about being wise. It wasn't the smartest thing I'd done, but I was like, oh well, I used a few enemas at the beginning, and that helped. It helped a bit more. So that's where using a tool like that is really important. But also realizing where you're at, and this is where uh, self-awareness is so important too, because a lot of people love to just be told like the exact systematic thing and this is the way to do it. It's just like a rinse and repeat for everyone, but you can never give a general thing, right? So like with you did an amazing juice fast on your own accord. You just like felt it and you went for it and you had an amazing result from that. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm like, yes, that person's taken their health back into their hands. They're taking these giant steps that most people don't do.
Mm.
And you see those results. Like there are sometimes Morse just had a recent Q&A. He's like, there are sometimes when you just need to be on nothing but grapes for 6 months. And he's like, whether you like it or not. He's like, these sound like extreme measures or just juice or whatever. These sound like extreme measures, but there are times when that is absolutely necessary to get to another level of cleaning the system out.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting when we talk about extremes because we have normalized, injecting like high acid chemicals into our bodies, and we
Mm.
don't see that as extreme, but we would say eating grapes for an extended time is
Yeah.
extreme. And
Yeah.
I'm actually in that experience now of eating grapes predominantly, which I'd love to talk to you about because I started and I did 14 days.
Oh, I see.
Um, so this is after, so just for context, everyone, we'll go back to the juice fast as well because I'd love to talk about that a bit more. But
Mhm.
I did 14 days on grapes. And like I said to Jake, I muscle test to see how long I should go for. And my body has always said 21 days. But after 14 days, I broke the fast and I had all of these commitments where I was needing to go to restaurants every night. People were paying for me. It was like I just did a TED talk, which was an amazing experience. And all of that was I just made the emotional choice to like, that
Mm.
was great. I did the 14 days. Like I still ate grapes during the day and then I'll just release myself to eat that meal with
Mm.
other people. And that was the curry meal, which was the last one I had. So then tonight again, I'm being paid they're providing a meal for me and I would feel too rude to not eat it. It's a beautiful vegan meal.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm kind of like, is that really stuffing me up though? Do you think? Because now I've got to like, I'm not going to ever get that 21 days continuously. I've gone 21 days mainly, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. If people find that it gets interrupted for some reason that is important to them.
Yeah, no, I don't think at all that's negative in terms of that you're screwing yourself up, that what you're doing is there's no point, not at all. Like I used to have that mindset of even if I was like back in the day when I did my first mono grape diet, I did one for like 7 days and then the other one I did for like 12 or 14. And this was quite a few years ago. And I remember the first one I had in one of the evenings, I just wanted something salty and savory. So I literally just got like really nice vine ripe tomatoes with a bit of Celtic sea salt and I ate that. And in
Mm,
my head, I was like, I've just screwed everything up. And it's
mm,
like you had midway a meal of just tomatoes and a bit of salt, and the rest was grapes. It's like, no, that's not like if you
mm,
need to do things during that process, like you said, you made a conscious choice because of the situations you're in. When you're done with that, you can just get back on it. And this is where a lot of people don't understand, and I have to explain this to clients, where if you're it's like with this, if you even just the baseline with the diet and the herbs and so on, let's say you're just really getting stuck in, you're now driving your car for the first time in your life. You're the one behind the wheel, you're the one in control, you're not hitting the accelerator. There are times when you're probably going to need to pump the brakes, stop the car, and get out for a bit. Doesn't mean you're driving back in the other direction. It just means I'm going to stop for a bit. And this is where, if you go and consume some things that aren't necessarily ideal, this doesn't mean that you're, back at square one where you began. Though sometimes it can mentally feel like that because it can be challenging. But I don't think, unless you were to just do grapes and then go and have like a vegan cheeseburger or something, I would say those kind of times, and especially when you do get quite sensitive, you could do some serious damage, because a good example of where uh, where this can take place is, let's say you're someone that's got a really weak stomach and small bowel, whatever area that's got sensitive acidified tissue, and now you've been diligent, the waste has been cleared out. Let's say you had mucoid plaque, or you had a thick layer of lymph protecting the side of that bowel wall. All that's coming away now, which means all of this vulnerable tissue underneath is exposed to whatever chemistry comes in. And because this is where healing those weaknesses take longer. First, it's getting rid of the waste. It's like renovating a house. I got to take out all the shit first, and now I can start to repair the house. So when you have a sensitive area and you now are like, well, I feel great, I must be healed, not realizing that you've just gotten to the point where you're at a certain amount of cleanliness, doesn't mean the weak areas are strong yet. And then now you put in something really acidic and bad, because that's really not ideal. It's going to slam that tissue, and that could push that tissue over the edge. It could take it from a degenerative, it could take it from a subacute chronic condition to degenerative, where all the cells just die, and your body has to almost fully remove, start clearing the area out and rebuild it. So it could make it way longer. So that's where about being smart with those things, I would say, would be the only thing I would be wary of long term. Where a good example, my mum did a 5-day coconut water fast one time, and she had a vegan donut after it. She was at a festival, at a market, completely forgot she was on the coconut fast. Her mind got the better of her, and she ate a donut, and she had a migraine for about 3 days. So who
Mm.
knows what kind of damage that could have done. But think about that, like 5 days on coconut water, and then a processed, ultra refined, deep fried vegan donut like that. There are people that have killed themselves by putting the wrong foods in after a fast. So that's just where it could go with that sort of thing. But
But the
that's,
refeeding is actually the hard bit. That's the part that we've got to, yeah, be careful of. That's
yeah,
interesting. Because when I ate that curry, I felt the bloating and everything straight away.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay. So how do you know when you're healed, and what should you do to heal? Like, is it eating raw for a longer time? Is it a few years journey? Is it taking herbs? Like, what do you think we need to
Well,
do?
a good way to have a look, like a live update of what's going on, is in 6 to 12 months, take another photo of your eyes and have a look. I actually have a book right here that I recommend to anyone. It shows
Mm.
you when areas, this is Iridology Simplified, which is like a great little quick guide by Bernard Jensen, who Morse was great friends with. And they show you this area in here where you can tell, and you learn this in Morse's Iridology course too, which is being able to tell which areas of the fibers are healing versus becoming worse. So
Okay.
if you're someone that's been on the uh, diet for an extended period of time and you've done a protocol, usually herbal protocols are 3 to 6 months sort of window, and some need to be used long term, especially for very weak gland areas. But usually a very full protocol isn't required beyond that. Herbs aren't meant to be used for that amount of time, unless very chronic situations. So you can tell by looking at the eyes, you'll be able to see the eyes clearer. If you know what color your eyes are, it should be more that color. So if you know you've got a blue eye, but it looks more hazel, like that's a lot of sulfur, probably a lot of lymph in there as well. In a year's time, if you're doing it well, you'll see a difference, and you'll see areas that are getting better. So that's a great way to see. Like if you were to technically go and get surgery done and take a photo of your eyes before and get an area all cut up and stitched up and whatever, you could go the next day and look at the eyes and you'd see that in the eye.
That's
Like,
so fascinating.
yeah,
Can you tell us a bit more about how that works? Is all the nerve endings are shown in our eyes, or how does that work?
it is honestly, it's one of the things, it's like more says it's one of like the wonders of nature. Somehow the body has a TV screen in each eye, which is a live update essentially of what's going on in your body everywhere. So from the top of the head area everywhere in the brain to your arm to your hand to your shoulder on each side. So your left eye has the heart. There's only one heart. It's not dualistic, but most other things are dualistic. You got two lungs, one each side, two eyes, one each side, two hands, one each side, two kidneys, one each side. Everything's split other than appendix, the liver gallbladder, which is on the right side, and then a few other, and then the heart. There's a few things that aren't dualistic, but most things are dualistic. There's two. And um, in the Iridology Simplified book there, it was discussed like who discovered the connection with the eyes, and it was actually a medical surgeon. And there was an owl that flew into his office, into his studio. And from memory, the story goes that the owl was like trying to take something from him, and he was trying to like, no, 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 you can't get that. And he injured the bird's leg. And he noticed as I think he broke the bird's leg from memory, he saw a line appear because the shock of the look of the owl was like, what are you doing? He saw this line appear like a dark indentation in the iris. And then he observed this bird over the time as it healed, and he noticed when the bird healed, that line disappeared. So this is
That's
when this was I don't know what period it was in, but this would have easily been 17 or 1800s, I would say.
fascinating.
And so when you have these deep indentations, that's an indication of serious weakness. But as it heals, that line becomes less and less vivid until it disappears. Some people have such weaknesses, like myself with an appendix that burst. I could maybe regrow an appendix one day if I got to that level of cleanliness, which would probably be a bit of a mission to get to, but it may happen. Like that, we've seen people grow weird, like new sets of teeth, like as like people think hair loss is like non-changeable. I've experienced hair loss and then it regrowing, like not to the extreme of some people, like some people go full bald, like in men as well. Men get that the hardest, and then it starts to regrow. And that's all reflected in the eye. You can tell the stagnation, and I think that's the best way to look, because otherwise you're playing a guessing game,
Yeah.
and that's not the funnest thing mentally. Like I think as humans we like to have some sort of reassurance, and I would say the one negative to what I do for work is giving people an exact time frame is just not something you can do, and you can see the disappointment. And because they used to hearing an exact time frame for something, they used to hearing something, because it's easy for a doctor to give a timeline on something because they know how long it'll take for a symptom to be suppressed. They know how fast that drug works, so they can do that. But when it's detoxification, you're dealing with genetic strength, you're dealing with lymphatic stagnation, organ and gland weakness, your mental state, how well you're feeling. I had a client who I no longer work with who couldn't take it anymore. That they weren't in a position where they could mentally handle it, and the people around them were not helping them at all. And I
Wow.
thought this person could have been helped, but they had too much negativity around them. It was just unreachable. And I said, I can't coach you anymore. I can't, I literally cannot help you with this situation. And so, and unfortunately that happens because there is so much going on where it's self-empowerment, it's taking our responsibility back. But if we can just all learn the eyes, like if someone were to buy this book, it's $12
Mhm.
on
There's on my
Amazon.
list of things to buy at the moment. I saw you show
Yeah,
that
it's
today.
brilliant. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to become an iris reader, but there's enough in there for you to like go to your family and be like, oh, let's have a look here. Yeah, you've got that, so that means you have a weakness there, and that it's not hard to learn.
It's funny
And
because even already when I'm talking to people, I glimpse that little sulfur ring around their pupil, and I'm like, oh, yeah, you got sulfur.
I know,
Yeah, it's
and it's
interesting.
so full on. Most people have a lot. Like it's scary. Like I saw someone the other day whose outer part of their eye was bright blue, and the inside was like a copper orange. And I was just like, and I looked, and that person was covered in moles. Like I have moles, and I've had them grow for me over the years. But that's when I was eating beans and rice and so on. But now
Interesting.
they're falling off and becoming less. But oh, did your light go off?
Yeah, it just went off. Yeah. Mhm.
That's all right. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's one of
Well,
those
can you
things
tell
that.
me about moles? Because when I'm learning
Mm,
about, 'cause I'm studying block therapy, which is all about the fascia, and they talk about it being a spiral of fascia that comes out as a mole, which is interesting, and I'm sure it relates to the
mm.
lymph and all of that. What do you see moles as?
Yeah, well, yeah, at Morse's school, very interesting because as a side note, from my understanding, fascia is part of the lymph, is it not?
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
very connected.
Yeah, because I've heard it interchanged before, but Morse doesn't really use the term fascia, though
Mm.
when it comes to moles, from what we see, it's fungal related. So warts and moles, when they start growing on you, that's always are correlated with sulfur in the gut. So from like
Interesting.
whether from pharmaceuticals, whether from mostly it's diet. The biggest way to most people have them because they can combine a protein and a starch, which creates fermentation because they digest at opposite sides of the spectrum. And you know, I see a lot of people use salves to pull moles off and they end up with massive scars. And I say to people, why even bother? Just wait, do the diet, they'll fall off. Like
Yeah,
I've
one of
had,
mine, massive ones fell off my neck
yeah,
from
you
an extended water
exactly.
park. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy. It'll literally fall off. You
And
don't need to.
I have all these really weird growths that happen. Like I always have to get lumps cut out of my head that are just benign kind of cyst things. And I had these weird lumps that I'm just finding are going away that have been
Yeah,
there forever. And
yeah.
it's so cool. And another thing that's happened is I've heard people talk about the softness of your skin, but my skin has become so soft. That happened at day 14 of the grapes.
Mm.
And that was after the 44-day juice fast. So it took a long, a long time, but I've never experienced skin like this.
It's
It's just
honestly, it's incredible.
worth it for
The,
that.
pe- the people I've shown, honestly, the people I've shown of your before and after, they're like, that's, I had three people say that's not the same person because I've got skeptical friends and I wanted to show them. And they said, that's not the same person. I said, it is. And they said, no, it's not. Like, oh, it's her like cousin or sister or something. And I said, no.
No.
No, it's honestly, but that's the thing is you can look like a completely different person. Like your transformation from September
Yeah,
is unreal. Like the difference is it's incredible. And like showing people and showing like the change. And when you start to experience it, like I think it took me like to have 100% pain out of my mouth, it took a fair few months. Just like what you said, like you did 40 odd days on juice and then continued with the grapes, and then you started experiencing like this the baby skin, or
yeah,
essentially like it's that time is your best friend. A lot of times during detox, you can look worse. And that's because your body's going after all these weaknesses and it's putting all this energy into these areas. But once it tackles that and it's no longer overwhelmed, it's almost like having a ton of homework on your desk as a teenager, and you don't know where to begin. But now you're on top of it, you can start to become calmer. It can start to sort itself out more, and then you're not going to feel as horrible. You're not going to have those massive ups and downs. Your skin's going to be way more even. And I experienced that on the juice fast too. I still haven't experienced as clear as skin on grapes.
yeah,
Like
mm,
like at the moment, I've got bananas and grapes because I couldn't find the best ones the other week. And after my bananas are done, I'm like, man, like I have no time limit on the grapes for me. I'm just gonna eat them
yeah.
for as long as I can muster.
Well, I just got another, like I think 8 punnets today. When I started the grape fast, I got 15 punnets at 98 cents of each of organic grapes. And I just want to tell you my trick is that at
Mm.
Woolworths, I get them from Woolworths. I'm sure Coles is the same, but not many people spend money on organic grapes. So if you wait till the due date, so you just look on the front, due date, they mark them down. And
Ah,
there's always
so you'll
cheap
find out,
wrapper.
and then you'll come back on the due date.
Yeah, so I come back on the due date
That
and I get
is
them
so
for
good.
cheap. Yeah, and I have mixed them with the standard grapes because the standard
Yeah,
grapes are delicious. Like they are massive at the moment and just beautiful and all the different colors and varieties. But
yeah,
when you can get them organic, like obviously it's amazing. But yeah, so
that's
I got
amazing.
another lot today. So go for it. Do it. I'm just like if I feel like it's been really helpful for me to get objective measures for me to know, yeah, I've had a breakthrough. So for me, the juice fast, my goal was to release mucoid plaque. So can
Mm.
you tell us about that and what that is? At the end of my juice fast, I had people saying it's a myth, it doesn't exist, and all that kind of thing. And that goes like, so if someone goes and searches up mucoid plaque, they're going to find, yeah, that's a myth. And like,
Mm.
because people's main question is why doesn't it show up in colonoscopies and all this kind of stuff? And my understanding is that we're working on the whole intestines, like it's not just about where that colonoscopy will show up
Mm.
either. But tell us
Yeah.
the whole, please. Just do unpack mucoid plaque for us
Oh
and
yeah. Well,
educate us.
firstly, what forms mucoid plaque is probably a good place to start, and what it is. So it's essentially it's a result of uneliminated starch protein matrix, if you will. So any sort of poor food combining that most people have consumed, if you are someone that's lived on like a meat and three veg kind of diet, which most people in the West do, there's a high chance you're going to have quite a bit of mucoid plaque in you. And what essentially it does is you've got the proteins, which is the acid component, and then you've got the glue, which is the starch. Like everyone knows paper mache, and even in Asia they use rice for a glue, to glue things together. You can use flour, so bread and meat, bread and ham, bread and eggs. Like I used to have egg sandwiches as a kid. This essentially, when it's been digested, which isn't really, but it's been digested, it's going through your small bowel and then into your intestines. It just is so gluey and hard. The starch slams it onto the side of the wall, and then it just sits there. And then what's burning the wall now is the acid component, which is the protein component of that. And then that essentially is this hard, rubbery, like very necrotic, disgusting substance that just binds itself onto the side of your bowel wall. And as you said,
Sorry, I'll just stop you there because I'll just give a little warning that I'll pop up some pictures now. So if you don't want to see the pictures, look away as
yeah,
Jake
yeah,
describes it.
they can be, yeah, it's just like black death is probably the best way to think of it. Black mucus, it looks like. And sometimes it's softer, sometimes it's harder. Often this has been in the human being from childhood. They can be that old. And just as you said before, with why it doesn't show up in a colonoscopy, is I would like to ask like a colon therapist, are you putting in 20 meters of camera length? Like when you do these things? No, you're not. There's so much space in your GI tract. Like the length of it is incredible. Like if we were to pull out our intestines, you could lap it around like part of an oval. You know what I mean? Like these kind of things. There's so much space there. And when you start to do something like a juice fast, the juices acts as a solvent, and it just starts to, and even the diet alone, like you can get mucoid plaque out on the herbs and the fruit as well, is they just start to move it off the bowel wall, and then it'll start to come out. And usually a really good way to get mucoid plaque out in a pretty short space of time is through juice fasting. It will be faster than just doing the diet and the herbs, from my experience at least. I
Yeah.
do know people do get it out through the herbs and the fruit. And once I think your body gets really good with using fruit fiber, like it really gets like nourished by that, then you're just going to see it come out. Like often you'll, like I'll see it, maybe TMI for some people, but you'll see like the fruit matter with the old matter.
Yes.
Like you'll see it mixed. And
Yeah.
that's great. It shows the fruit is pulling it out. And that's another thing. Fruit is astringent, like what I said before. And that means that it moves lymph, but it also will move lymph through the bowel walls, which is going to pull mucoid plaque off too. So fruits just have such a great component in
Yeah.
terms of that, whether it's juice or the whole fruit. And
Mm.
I think a lot of people do think it's a misnomer because they may have not experienced it. And all I could say is maybe you're one of the lucky few who had a pretty strong GI tract and you managed to get a lot of that, most of that stuff out when you ate it, or you just haven't dug deep enough with any sort of fasting or extensive. Because you could be someone that's eating all fruit and all raw, but if you're working out all the time, your body's never really going to have energy to do anything else other than repair muscle. And I think a lot of people do that. You see people on both sides of the spectrum. You see some people focus too much on detox and they get very lean, but that's also fine. You're going to get way more cellular regeneration that way. But then you see other people that just go straight into exercise. And it's all about, I can build muscle on this diet, whatever. That's cool, but your body's not going to have the energy to do the other things.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I've intuitively, through my detox period, just really let go of that building type of exercise. And I'm
Yeah.
just blocking, releasing, fascia stretching, doing a little bit of rebounding, anything that supports my lymphatic system. And I know that I'm getting really close to that building phase again. But
Yeah.
when I read the Grape Cleanse book, she said to do grapes until you stop losing weight. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Johanna Brandt really got onto something there. The book that, yeah, you're talking about is The Great Cure, which is a lady that pretty much got rid of her incurable cancer in around 6 weeks with grapes. And then she helped a lot of other people, right? And the success was just undeniable, continually successful. And that's why we will use grapes as the main thing for people in wheelchairs or any sort of debilitating condition. It's pretty much, yeah, non-negotiable grapes indefinitely. at least
I've
three
been in
months if you
touch
can do
with
that.
a guy in one of the communities that he's treating his cerebral palsy with grapes. Yeah, which is fascinating because that's something that we would regard as, from birth,
Yeah,
non-curable. So
yeah.
yeah.
Is he the guy that's been like 120 days or something?
Uh,
Yeah, he was on Dr. Morse's video.
oh, was
Um
he? And he also interviewed the other Australian lady that you had a recent interview with.
Sky.
That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he did an interview with Marco, who's essentially Morse's right-hand man for like the school and anything to do with Morse, Dr. Morse's online stuff. And he was amazing, like seeing like his determination, and he's really like that's really what you got to do at times. And um actually completely forgot, what was your question again?
Oh, well, oh yeah, whether we stay on grapes until we've lost
Yeah.
weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until
I
we've
was
stopped losing weight. Because
yeah.
like you've said before, the fruits and all of this detoxing will break you down and then it can also build you up. So it will do whatever your body needs.
Yeah. Well, this is I think you've stumbled across a great area here, and this is that the fruits aren't actually making you thinner, and people can't get their heads around this. So, and I like to repeat it to clients and friends numerous times. I say the fruits are essentially the key to allowing your body to get rid of that which is weak. So whatever you have that's weak, and that's cells, it's going to get rid of them. If you've got more unhealthy cells that need replacing, you will lose more weight. If you have more crap in your system, you will lose more weight. But the moment your body is rebuilding more than it's getting rid of waste, then you're going to go from this decrease in weight to build up, and you'll get to the point you need to get to. So you could be someone that's completely malnourished and underweight and go straight on a fruit diet and you'll put on weight because
It's
you're
so
already
cool.
it's such a negative. So when you're at an excess and everything's weak, you're going to strip down and then it's going to build up. And grapes definitely, in my opinion, of what I've seen, the best balanced fruit. They're not too astringent. They're not too not astringent. They're not too acidic. Everything about them is like they're so satiating. Uh, they allow your body to have so much energy. It's not even funny. Just a side note, real quick. I have a neighbor here who is an elderly lady, and I
Mm.
was I was bought grapes the other day, and I just said to her, "Oh, would you like some grapes? I got quite a few grapes here." And she said, "Oh, I actually used to be a grape farmer, and my daughter, when she was 13 years of age, ate only grapes for 3 weeks." This was like 50, 60 years ago. And she said she was never a sporty girl, her daughter, and she destroyed everyone in the relay races and the running and the sprinting and the gymnastic work just on grapes. And I just thought, here I am doing this and whatever. And my neighbor used to be a grape farmer, and her daughter has experienced the power of grapes, and they know about the grape cure book. So just someone that I I only know from living near them, that they've experienced the power of that and seen that like in their daughter in like what 3 weeks. And I think that you may get very weak, not weak, sorry, you may get very lean, but
Mm.
man, you're going to have a lot of strength. Like the
Yeah.
vitality in the way you look, like you're a great representation of that, Estelle. It's the change in just how you visually look in terms of like the vibrancy, like how you like the eyes, the main areas is the eyes has become like crystal clear. There's like a vibrant energy about you that people don't really know what to do with. They're not used to seeing people that alive. And
It's
I
really funny because when I went on to all of this, when I'd go to the shops, people would just tell me how beautiful I looked.
yeah,
Just total strangers, like would stop me. They go, "Hey, lady, you look amazing." Like
yeah.
they call across the car park, and I'd be like, "What is going on? This is crazy."
It is crazy, yeah. But it's
Yeah,
I think people subconsciously they recognize really strong, vibrant energy
yeah,
that
that's it, isn't
when it radiates from you and you just look amazing. It's like it's one of those things that you can't really say until you experience it. And as you said, when people start just complimenting you randomly, and you're like,
stopping you in the street.
yeah, that's like exactly. Can I get a photo? Uh, yeah.
That's
Are
so
you from this
funny.
planet? But I don't think there's. I don't think anyone should be afraid of the weight loss. As you said, like you really just, that was my thing. I just really came to terms with that, because you will lose whatever weight you need to lose. Unless you're just jumping into a crazy water fast and you're just doing, I don't know, straight off the bat, you've just gone into, I'm going to do 300 days on juice or whatever. It's like, yeah, maybe pace yourself, mate. Maybe like don't be so competitive with yourself. And yeah, you probably will drop a lot of weight. Like there was a story Morse had where the lady went from a standard New York diet
Mm.
to just going all fruits, and her fingernails fell out. And then she was like, my fingernails fell out. And he's like, well, yeah, did you did you do this? This is right when he started, like when he was still a really young man. And she said, no, 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 I just did my thing. And then she came back a few weeks later or a month later, and all her nails had regrown, and Morse thought they were fake. And she's like, no, 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 they grew back, but they all fell out, but they grew back. They're way better. Check them out. And she was like
Yeah.
super ecstatic about it. So that will happen. If you go very quickly, your body can just drop everything weak like that. It will just, see ya, I don't want it.
And
And
you can
that's
have
what,
hair loss as well and things like that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I've reached a point where I've had that a little bit, and like I just had to remind myself of the amount of acid I've had in my head, and I know that I'm getting to deeper parts,
Yeah.
and I've had areas that have like I've had more hair fall, and then I noticed all this growth coming back. And my mum's had the same. She's like, I'm having all this hair fall out, and then she's like, man, but now look, there's all this, and then she have black hair growing on, not gray. She went gray when she was like 20.
That's
My mum,
interesting.
my mum's nearly 60, and she's got like more, like still some gray, but it's like thicker black. And then
Mm,
it's just like, because she always dyes it and has always dyed it ever since she
mm,
was young. But the fact that
mm,
she went gray when she was 20,
mm.
and then, you know what I mean? Like seeing that is like incredible. And that's always a motivation.
Do you think that gray hair is also acidity around the follicle?
Yeah, I think there's definitely there's definitely genetic weakness in there, but in terms of Morse's teaching, it's dehydration first and foremost, which acid will pretty
Mm,
much do that. But I think there is also like cell strength in areas which may take longer to repair. Like I see people like John Rose is a good example of someone who's been like raw foodist since he was very young, and he said he went gray in his early 20s. And he talks about a genetic like weakness in these areas which can be irreparable or very, very hard to repair based on that weakness.
like
So,
my male pattern balding, it's not something that is so associated with this kind of thing. It's actually a genetic.
well,
Um,
because even if you have a genetic weakness in an area, in my view, it's still able to be turned around.
mm,
Because if you start getting like male pattern baldness, for example, which is very common, I also think just from a male and female point of view, it makes more sense why men have pattern baldness and females don't really have it. Though it is picking up more in women, funnily enough,
mm.
is I think because the world's becoming more aggressive and males usually more acidic, they're more aggressive. So I think that's why we see that more in men than women. But when it,
With testosterone, they
sorry,
say that it's connected with testosterone. So that's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and
Mm,
I would say that's like a hyperstimulation of those reproductive organs, which and with the adrenal glands for men, which is a testosterone production. But it's funny, testosterone is not a 3 pH, it's like a 5.5 or a 6. But in saying that, if there's an imbalance, and also as you said, like you said before, that dentist guy, that he noticed just one generation of a poor diet completely degraded them. The same
mm,
way I used to hear people say that, oh, well, it's what it takes generations to see weaknesses. And I just think, look at the Indigenous Australians. White man has been here for not very long, and we see really sick. I see really sick Indigenous
mm,
folk around here, and I just think, man, this system is trying to screw them over
mm.
because they just have bottle shops and fast food chains everywhere they live,
Yeah.
and that's all they can afford and get to, and it's quick, it's instant. Chemistry acts immediately, and that's why I would say I don't think anything's not fixable. The same way, you said people think cerebral palsy is not fixable. People think you're in a wheelchair, it's not fixable. Morse has got people out of wheelchairs that were born with a genetic injury, where they were
That,
born in a wheelchair.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we do limit ourselves by what we see around us. And so that's why I think we've normalized aging because
Yes.
our collective consciousness agrees that that's what happens.
Mm,
But then we see these outliers
mm.
that don't age typically. And I've been really fascinated by the blue zones and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which show us some, good hints along the way of how we can.
Definitely. And I think one of them that my brother talked to me about the other day, and I'm sure you've discovered this in just research in the blue zones, is how exercise is a Western concept. Like these guys don't exercise in our sense of exercise. They move their bodies, whether they're plowing the land, picking fruits, walking to the market or walking to get food. They're physically using their body, not in a strenuous manner, but in an efficient manner. And that's why, people often say to me, "Oh, can I still work out when I am doing detox?" And I say, I wouldn't encourage it, because if you're excessively pushing your body has to put that energy towards that and not healing. And I often say, which is something I only just recently clicked with me, as I thought, man, what animal exercises when they're fasting or healing? None.
Mm,
They do nothing.
great
So
point.
doing nothing when you're healing is the best thing really you should do. A great example of this is wheelchair victims. When they go on fruits and go on herbs and they start getting movement back in, one of the first things that improves is their weight. And they're sitting in a chair all day long. And
Mm,
because that's what, wheelchair people just have a hard time with, is weight continually. And there's plenty of cases that Morse has had that show that. It's crazy, like seeing that difference. So I think, as you said, like, those sort of blue zone guys, there's so much to learn in terms of like lifestyle choice and how they live their life.
yeah, no,
It,
on the holistic, like the way
yeah.
that they're so connected and
Mm.
yeah, all of that. Yeah, no, it's really, I could just talk forever. But I just wanted to touch back on the juice fast experience that I had.
Yeah.
And just that whole thing of having an objective outcome was really helpful. So you've said like we could either look at our eyes, that would be objective.
Yeah.
We can see mucoid plaque coming out.
Yeah.
And mine wasn't like the same as all the black big ones. It could have been a bit confusing if I didn't trust my body that it was going to come out when it did. I might have missed it. Um, but but then after that, then all the mucus came out and all the sulfur. So it was bright orange mucus.
Damn.
And that was rank. That is the
Yeah.
rank stuff. Like that is death in your body.
Oh man.
Like I would dry reach. It was that bad. So I was so glad to get that out. And
Yeah.
so I'm gonna encourage, the women if they want to go down that track to have that objective outcome can be helpful. Same with the grapes, like you say, you could either do that on just fruit and herbs. You could do it on grapes. You can do it juice. Um, and then yeah, noticeable things like hair growth, skin, things falling off your body, cysts going away, weird
Yeah.
things that moles falling off, all that kind of stuff. Like they are really nice objective encouragements for us to keep going on this journey.
Yeah.
Um, but when do you think, when do you think when do you think I should know when I'm done in this detox phase and I'm ready for that rebuilding phase? Is it
Well,
by looking at the eyes, or is there something I just know in my body, or?
I think just based on how you look personally, I think your body's already doing more rebuilding. It's at that stage where it is, because you wouldn't look so good. If you're in more of a stripping down phase, you will just probably look worse. You'll
I
often
looked
look,
bad in my juice fast. It was ugly. And
yeah,
that's
you
kind
can,
of what it gets a bit scary because you start feeling emaciated and and people are commenting and it was just so much pressure. I had so much pressure. People were telling me I was anorexic. They were like, and you just don't look great. You look really hollow.
yeah,
Um, and I
yeah,
just remember you got to go to the ugly. You got to just embrace that part of
yes.
it.
And that's the thing, especially if you're someone, if it's like your first juice fast, like I only started to look less gaunt, uh, like once I started finishing it, once I started eating the fruits again, because the juicing, if your body's very weak in certain areas, it'll just keep wanting to rebuild that area, which will often result in, as Morse puts it, he's like your physical body can look like pretty buggered. It can look pretty. You
Mm,
can look like you've just come from, I don't know, a drug ring somewhere. You can look really bad. And but that's the thing, is knowing why that happens, and also realizing that if you were to continue on the juices, people can even have that look just on the fruits. Just so you know, I've seen people get that look without even going on juices, because
mm,
even just the fruits alone are enough, because their body's so toxic for their body to just start cleaning up house, so much so that they start to look a bit off. And the good thing knowing is that the fruits, which are the fruits that allow your body to strip down to its weakness, is the same food that's going to rebuild you.
mm,
So even then, it's not a matter of necessarily changing your diet. It's the fact that you will start to look different. Oh, I have way more energy on average now. Like, every other day, often during like the cleaning phase, if you will, is you'll often have immense energy for an extended period of time. It could be days, it could be a week, whatever, and then bam, you get a day or every other day, you're like, oh man, geez, I feel like I'm 80 years old.
Mm,
And then it passes and you go, oh, I feel amazing now. And then, oh, next thing, and then it's a sort of this cycle of deep healing with the healing crisis, and then bam, more energy, and then it's back in again, and bam, back in, and then often that spaces out more, where you feel way better over extended period of time, and then maybe once or twice a year you'll get a crazy healing crisis where your body has managed to get itself to a deeper level. And that's why playing the long game and treating it as a lifestyle is so much more important than just like a period. But if you were to say a period, I agree with Morse's recommendation, which is dig in with the detox mindset for 6 to 12 months for most people. But in some cases, like my mum, for example, she's got chronic lymph. And I said at least a year to two, probably three of like of diligence. And this is where it's the individual level. But the great
mm,
thing is you're probably going to feel bloody amazing in 6 to 12 months anyway. So even though
mm,
you've got weaknesses still, you're not going to care because you already feel way better. You're just going to truck on. You might have a slip and slide here and there, but it's
mm.
okay because you're on the right track and you are getting where you need to go in the way that you now understand how to do it. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really do see it as a cycle now. I'm like, well, every grape season, I'm gonna just have a season of grapes, and you start
Yeah.
becoming in touch more with the seasons. And I loved mango season, and you
Same.
just, yeah, I just really enjoy all of that. And then you might want to do a few parasite cleanses on some full moons or whatever, or
Yeah.
and you just kind of make it part of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And also like around a woman's cycle, in my little ebook, I've got how we can do some, longer fasts, like maybe a 3-day water fast I'll do once a month or
Wow.
something just to kind of reinforce everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just becomes a beautiful cycle that's a part of your life. And like you say, I always say it's in your direction, not imperfection. So,
Mm.
and you've really encouraged me in that because I do tend to become a bit perfectionistic. And I'm like,
Same.
oh, I've eaten this, what do I do? And you're like, it's okay. It's just like, get back on. It's all good.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.